Get your day started right. From our shack to yours, this is Coffee and Ham Radios. We are live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good morning. How are y'all doing? What's that, Chuck?
I like that intro, man. It's cool.
Oh, it's a beautiful intro. It's very professional. Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? Ape, good?
Good. I'm doing good. I'm trying to say hi to everybody in the chat. So hi to everybody in the chat.
That gets hard saying hi to everybody in the chat. There's a lot of people in the chat. Good morning, Sean. We got Sean. I'm going to butcher this last name. I'm sorry. Kutzko? Is that right?
Kutzko. Close.
Kutzko. Okay.
Kutzko.
We have KX9X, which I can say. We have Sean Kutzko here. He's the
say it three times real fast.
While looking in the mirror.
Very handsome ham in the middle here between me and Ape. Sean is here. We're going to talk about satellites this morning. A little bit of AMDXing, 6 meters. I believe Sean is a POTA guy
handsome
too.
ham in the middle.
Oh Lord, here we go. Here we go. Obviously, T.O.'s had his coffee already, feeling froggy. So Sean is going to talk about all that stuff. So get your questions queued up if you got satellite questions, AM questions, because there's a lot of stuff. Sean is a walking encyclopedia of really interesting ham knowledge.
Is that what you're billing me as?
Yeah.
Man, you guys are in trouble.
We got to get views somehow.
We got to get the views, brother.
Encyclopedia Kutzko.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm like, this guy, he's like Wikipedia for satellites, except he's got 2 legs instead of a database. So it's yeah. So anyway.
Wow, pressure's on now. Holy crap.
Right.
Wow.
So Abe, what are you up to today?
So hang on, Jim. With that intro,
okay.
with that intro you just gave, Sean, take it away. Show's yours.
Yeah, there you go. Show's yours. We're out.
All right.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to my show. Let's see. What can we do with this? This could be fun. Today,
we have that jar, so watch it.
The swear jar.
T.O., can you kind of run because I'm downloading those extra slides?
I sure can. We were in the middle of introducing Ape. I don't know why. Oh, that's right, because he's going to have to run to the bathroom here real soon.
I just went. I should be good. I just went.
For
I told you that's where he went. It's like
5:20.
He did.
I should be good for till at least 90 minutes. I got my second Pixie kit in the mail today. All these parts are super tiny. I don't know about these things. But we're doing a build for these for the YouTubers Ham Fest, and I'm afraid I was going to mess mine up, so I got a second one just in case. So,
well, you're going to do it so well that it'll be a giveaway when you're done.
well, that's what I'm hoping. But figure I'd get me a little insurance policy. So
this is a tiny, tiny little radio.
Look at that blinged out knob. Blam!
I know. I painted that
fancy.
special with my nail
You painted
polish.
that? Well, I thought that was like an electro finish. What do they call that?
Ooh,
electro finish.
tiny.
Anodized. I think that's the word.
Anodized.
We learned about that the other day.
Now
Powder-coated plastic.
We tried to.
Right. I have my moments.
I'm glad you could bring him to the show today, Jim.
Yeah, right.
Mine-
All right.
My Pixie
No,
almost
it's not
looks
real
like that.
brass.
See? Oh wait, no, it's
You're
still on the
still
box.
I have one that looks like that.
Do you?
Did you get 2 of them as well, Tio?
No, it's the empty box.
But these little resistors here, these things are like grain of rice small. Like
told you they're not
pre-cooked.
small, man.
Let's see those
grain of
again.
rice.
Let's see those again. Yep. Ape hand for scale.
Right.
I showed you the ones I got. The
Oh
resistor
yeah,
I
you
got
have
that's
surface
like-
mount.
Surface mount one's way smaller than that.
Yeah, Chuck's got to do a repair on his 991A.
Yeah, it remains to be seen whether I can or not. It may be a brick.
Okay.
I don't know if
Probably
I'm
not.
impressed with this radio for $15 or not. It's a fun kit for $15. It does do the radio thing. But now that we've got like the, is it as good as a Baofeng? It's $10 cheaper than a Baofeng.
That's a pretty high bar there.
Baofeng has a flashlight.
This has a little
snap.
red LED
Okay,
on it.
this thing, I'm throwing this in the trash. It's not even as good as a Fang. We could wire in a flashlight though, Abe.
We could 12-volt flashlight. Imagine how bright that would be.
Right.
Gary's saying to isopropyl alcohol went real well when we do the build. It's probably got fester and flux all over it.
Dave's got his Pixie kit. Awesome, Dave. Shooter ready, stand by.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
I bought 2 kits as well, and I'm gonna put one together, and I haven't decided what I'm gonna do with the second kit. But like Abe, it's kind of a backup if I burn up something important in the first kit.
So 2 things. Number 1, the Swede is in the chat. We're gonna have to get you to change your channel name from LB0FI to the Swede, just to
Swede,
keep Abe happy. And he's asking, Jim, is $15? Well, you haven't built yours yet. Is $15 for the Pixie kit more fun than the Ham Shack hotline?
No, I think the Ham Shack hotline's more fun.
What is Sean?
It's
think of the Ham Shack
long-lasting
hotline?
fun.
I think it's a waste of time. I'm not playing the Ham Shack hotline games.
Oh, whatever.
you don't
have
play
to
on the
have a
radio
call
anyway.
sign to get it anyway.
I don't
You
do
have to have a
anything.
call sign.
But how is the Ham Shack hotline radio? Help me understand that.
You can DMR
It's tied into
over it.
DMR. I talked to Steve off my Ham Shack hotline phone to his DMR radio the other night.
So
Wow.
Steve was doing radio. You weren't then.
This
I
is
was
my
Ham Shack hotline into Steve. Yeah.
It's also All-Star connected, and I was able to check into the Florida Keys emergency net last week with it.
Yep.
And the guy runs
Because-
the net off of the hotline because it's easier for him.
Because that's relevant to Steve, the Florida Keys emergency net, with his location in northern Wisconsin. But okay. All right.
So somebody in the chat, Don's Locks, mentioned an HF Baofeng. This is about as close as you're going to get to an HF Baofeng. This is the Micro SDX Plus that you can get off of Banggood. So it actually comes from China and is Chinese made. And it's like $130. And it's not an official clone, but it is a clone of the true Micro SDX, which is a upgrade, quote unquote, possibly, of the QCX that Hans put out from QRP Labs. So there's a whole bunch of lineage in here, and this is worth every penny of $130, I think. So
I have one of those. Now that runs on an Arduino, I think, right?
yeah, it's an Arduino with an SI5351 open source code base, less than 1,000 lines of code runs that radio. Wow. It's not great. Don't get me wrong. It's worth every bit of $120. Don't misquote me on that. But $120 doesn't get you much HF radio.
Right. It receives well. I mean, I did not make any QSOs on it, but I had it hooked up to the Cartena, as a matter of fact, which is deployed in a non-optimal manner as well. And man, 40 meters I was getting all sorts of stations coming in on that thing. So the receiver on it is not terrible. I would say the noise rejection on it is probably, it receives noise quite well as also. But
so are you ready now, Jim?
Gadget. I am.
Well,
I have all Sean's slides loaded.
I guess we're not talking to me at all, I guess.
That was Steve.
Well, I was trying to give it back. I was trying to give it back to Jim. If Jim doesn't want to talk to you, that's between
Chuck,
you and Jim.
What's going
man.
on?
Oh, what's going on, Chuck? Let's
through the glass.
I feel left out, guys.
in your world, man.
So I've been doing a little testing on a overlanding fridge, so that thing should be out here next week. But
That's awesome.
Forget Your Life asked me what I did to my 991, and just let's just say, don't set it up under your main antenna for your house, and do testing and videos, bringing you guys great videos, on different things, and then leave it on, and then throw 800 watts through your other radio. Let's just say that doesn't help the front end resistor very well. So that would be a fix.
Good safety tip. So on that
But other than that,
overlanding fridge, is that big enough for like a trash bag full of, random things that are
You can bring
fairly
all your
large?
candy bars and stuff. Yeah,
No, large parts. I mean, not parts.
yes.
I didn't
It's
say
pretty
parts.
good size. It's 40, like almost 45 quart, and I think I may take it out tonight. I've been doing a lot of testing with it. It was perfect. It got up to 83 here yesterday. Beautiful day, and I got to check out how my little power supply worked and whether I could take a 60 watt solar panel and actually replenish the battery power, which it did. But
How many Miller Lights can you fit in that thing? I mean, let's get around to the stuff that's
right?
important. Right?
like 40 probably, at least.
Nice.
A lot.
Nice.
Doesn't
Now
need
we're
ice.
talking.
Yeah. Ape, you should have it sitting right next to your streaming setup there.
While you're streaming.
Of course, we wouldn't be able to understand him because I've chatted with him when he's had a few,
Right.
and I'm like, Ape, are you having Miller Lights tonight?
Is it after 5 o'clock?
Because your
My thumbs
what do you
get
say?
bigger, and
Is that what it
the
is?
keyboard gets blurrier on the phone. So,
Yeah, he was slurring
That's
his
right.
typing.
Save all those
That's right.
cans. You can make a vertical out of them.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
got to
you
tell you,
can.
Ape's an interesting drunk. I mean, the more he drinks, he goes through levels of like mood swings. So like he's even keeled Ape, then he's like I love you, man, Ape, and then he's like screw the world, Ape, and then he's like screw you. I'm like, all right, good night.
But yeah, it's time to go to bed. I
Yeah,
might
he's
go
like,
out.
I'm really tired. I'm going to bed.
I might go out tonight, and since today's Sunday, the Bozo Net is on Sundays and Wednesdays, and I can't do it Wednesdays, so I might go out tonight, take my 2-meter Yagi, the homemade one, and actually I might take my my elk also, but and then do a soda while I'm there. It's also a soda site, and it's a pretty much a drive up soda. I think my buddy says I can camp like 50 yards from it, so I might do that today, just to. So if you guys are on the air tonight, sometime today, I don't know. I may actually do the soda tomorrow morning. You only get credit
IMAs
once,
in there.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It all depends on when I get done here, you know.
That list of things to do and time to do it in is never in sync.
Nope.
The things to do is always much larger than the available time.
There's only time for 4 15-minute projects in a day.
And then I find that if I take a week off from work and I'm like, oh man, I can get all this stuff done. The week is over. I have to go back to work and I still have a large list of things not done. Sean, so I have all your slides queued up now. They are not possibly in whatever order, but
Let's embrace entropy. Let's just see what happens.
okay.
Big words.
Well, I was going to throw out some questions first, and if you guys have any questions, put question in big letters in the chat, and we'll try to keep up with those too.
Jim
so
needs big
there's-
letters.
There's two kinds. Well, I'm hoping one of you guys will, hook a brother up and keep an eye on that.
I got you.
There's sideband and FM. So I guess let's start there and go. Just go.
All right.
Go where the spirit takes you, my friend.
All right. So so for hams who want to operate satellites, you've got actually there are 3 types of satellites that are out there. You've got satellites that use FM, so that's basically like an orbiting repeater. One person can access it at any one point in time. You've got satellites that are called linear satellites, and they have what is known as a transponder on them, and that gives you about anywhere between 20 kilohertz and 60 kilohertz of actual bandwidth that you can tune across, kind of like you're tuning across 10 meters or 15 meters or your favorite HF band. And the linear satellites use sideband and CW. So those satellites, you can have multiple QSOs going on at the same time, as opposed to an FM satellite where only one person can access the satellite at a time. There are also satellites that use data as well. So there are some packet satellites out there, and there's some, there are some folks who are beginning to experiment with using FT4 and FT8 on some satellites. But I'll tell you right now, I am not the data mode satellite guy. That is not my area of expertise. So I will defer to somebody else who knows more about that than I do. But I can talk about the FM and the linear stuff.
That sounds like a lot of witchcraft.
Kind of
FT8 on a satellite.
There's enough time in a pass, is there?
Yeah, right. The time thing seems like a problem.
That's a good question, actually. So the two factors of trying to do FT8 and FT4 on satellites, as I understand it, because like I said, I'm giving you the disclaimer that this is not my big area of expertise here, is you've got to deal with decoding the signal fast enough when trying to factor in the Doppler effect, because on 70 centimeters, as the satellite's going overhead, your frequency is going to shift really, really quickly.
Right.
So staying locked in and being able to decode a digital signal that quick is of such a narrow bandwidth is pretty tricky. But the other factor, of course, too, is how much time do you have when a satellite is passing overhead? Most of the satellites that I'm talking about today are what are known as low Earth orbit satellites, or LEO satellites, and they average around anywhere between 300 to 600 kilometers over the surface of the Earth. So they're moving pretty quick. They're moving at about 7,000 kilometers. Now, see, This is what happens when I try to talk technical stuff before too many cups of coffee. They move fast. I'll say that. They move fast. So a satellite pass is going to be no more than about 15 or 20 minutes from horizon to horizon, wherever you're standing. So you don't have a whole lot of time.
So when you're doing a satellite QSO, there's a fixed QSO that you're doing when you do a satellite QSO, right? It's not, hey, how are you? The weather here.
That's a fair point. You know, I mean, there are certainly those in the satellite community who enjoy a good rag chew when you're doing satellite stuff.
My doctor says,
yeah, more or less, yeah.
That guy.
And you know, that's fine if generally you'll hear more of that kind of stuff on a linear satellite as opposed to an FM satellite, because an FM satellite, only one person can access it at a time, and there's just too many people that are trying to access it. So
right.
the contacts on an FM satellite are pretty much just an exchange of your call sign and your Maidenhead grid square, and that's about it, because there's just too many people that are trying to get in to use it. So those are very very brief contacts on FM satellites.
Awesome. So if somebody's done this for a long time, are you noticing an uptick in activity?
Oh yeah,
because it seems like it's becoming a more and more popular thing for folks to be doing.
Yeah, it's definitely getting a surge of activity in the past few years. I mean, you know, AMSAT's the satellite organization in ham radio, the Radio Amateur Satellite Corporation of America, AMSAT. I encourage you to go to their website at amsat.org and check out all sorts of their beginner information if you're curious about satellite operating. But you know, they've been promoting satellite activity since, you know, the 1960s. So they're the main organization that helps promote satellite operation, helps teach people how to operate satellites, and also has an incredible volunteer staff of engineers who actually build them and help get them into orbit. So they've been promoting this for quite a while. Other satellite operators have been promoting it for a while, and there's definitely an increase in activity over the past few years.
It's fantastic. I checked them out a while ago, and the thing that surprised me was the size of the satellites. Like they're really like Rubik's Cube size or something like that.
Yep.
You know, I was thinking they were the size of a dumpster or something.
Like, well, they used to be pretty big. Yeah, they used to be pretty large, but you know, hey, technology's great, so it's gotten a lot smaller. And the average satellite now are what are known as CubeSats, and they are a 10-centimeter cube with an antenna sticking out of it that's kind of like a tape measure, sort of.
That's 4 inches tape.
Yeah.
We use the American, the Freedom units on the Coffee and Ham Radio channel.
Yeah, for sure. So we got a couple of things to cover here real quick. Before this show started, Lionel dropped in a $10 super chat. Thank you very much for that, Lionel.
Yes.
And then
thank you, Lionel.
Dirk just dropped in a $5 CubeSat fund. We might have to have a Toads satellite outing there.
The Toads sat. Oh,
we have to make one.
You gentlemen get a golf clap. Thank you for that.
Thank you. And then before we get too far ahead of some of the folks in the audience, we do like to try and keep this on as many levels as possible, novice level as well as advanced level. And you mentioned Doppler, and Doppler's a little difficult to understand. Can you help us break that down a bit?
Sure. So everybody has heard the car horn when you're standing in one place and somebody's tooting their horn as they drive past, or a train whistle as the train goes past. So you hear that like that, and the frequency decreases as the train goes past. So that is what is known as the Doppler effect. And that affects all radio waves especially when you get up into the higher frequencies. So as the satellite is moving and passing overhead on let me back up just a little bit. So these satellites that we're talking about use two frequencies. There is a frequency component on 2 meters, and there is a frequency component on 70 centimeters. And you transmit or uplink to the satellite on one of those bands, and then you receive info from the satellite or downlink from the satellite on the other band. So it's a cross mode, a cross band type of operation. So if you transmit up to a satellite on 2 meters, you will listen on 70 centimeters. If you transmit on 70 centimeters, you will listen on 2 meters. So some satellites you transmit on 2 meters, some satellites you transmit on 70 centimeters. It varies from satellite to satellite.
And I'll take a wild guess that's so that you don't need cavity filters in space.
I would think so, yeah. I mean, try finding one that's that big.
Right.
See, I thought that the Doppler effect was when somebody else looked just like you.
That's the
doppelganger
doppelganger.
effect.
Oh,
Yeah.
the doppelganger.
Oh, very close. That man
We
is
love
so-
him. He's kind of odd sometimes. You notice you noticed the picture for the intro, right?
Yeah.
Did you notice the
We
clip? I mean,
wanted
that
it to
was-
be accurate as possible.
So to go to the opposite end of the spectrum, our friend over in Sweden is asking us,
Oh my
I am
Lord.
thinking about using an FT70D for transmit and an FT817 for RX, both through a diplexer into a homemade Yagi for FM satellites. Would that work fine? Yes.
Sure would. That'd work great. As long as you have a radio, as long as you have two radios that both transmit and receive on 2 meters and 70 centimeters, and an antenna that covers both of those bands, you'll be fine.
So the reason why I love very long, complex questions with one-word answers, but the reason why somebody might want to do that is because it's very hard to find a single radio that will transmit and receive a full duplex radio at the same time, so you can hear what's going on while you're transmitting. Most radios stop receiving.
He teed up my next question. So
Yeah.
now,
Somebody had a question earlier about SSB.
there was a SSB
Reversal?
question too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's try to take these as best
One
as
at a
possible.
time.
What about band reversal, USB to? Okay, that's a good question. Thank you, Raphael. So a lot of these satellites are what are known as inverting transponders on the sideband satellites, the linear satellites. So what that means is that you transmit on lower sideband going up to the satellite, and then you receive the signal coming back down from the satellite on upper sideband. So you have to make sure that your on the sideband satellites, you have to make sure that your sidebands are properly set for lower sideband on transmit and upper sideband on receive.
Rod, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rod.
So
Back to
yes,
Jim's
Rod,
question.
Rod gets another golf clap.
yeah, golf
Thanks,
clubs. Golf clubs.
Thank
We
you.
used to dance. They used to dance back in the day.
Well, I
We
guess it's
missed that.
become more civilized now, right?
Right, thank you.
The equipment doesn't work right.
Above
Some of
such
us don't-
things, and
some of
Ape's
us
equipment
don't
doesn't work
dance.
right. Right.
My equipment is faulty these days.
So Jim, you were in the middle of a question, and we switched the question right off
Well-
underneath of you.
Well, no, that's okay. That's okay. I want to keep it going. This is great.
Okay, so your
And you
question was
kinda
about
teed it-
different modes
Okay, now he's doing
and
it.
duplexing.
Yes, modes, duplexing, and radios. So I've seen somewhere, and you can probably tell me right off the top, there's a list of radios that will do, and the word here is full duplex, correct?
That's correct.
Correct.
So,
Okay.
I will confess I'm a little bit out of date on this, but the full duplex radios that used to be used for FM satellites, I don't know if there is an FM HT that does full duplex on the market at this point. So there used to be one called by Kenwood called the D72 that was fantastic. It was like the Cadillac of HTs. And it could transmit and receive simultaneously on 2 meters and 70 centimeters. It had built-in APRS and all kinds of cool stuff. But they discontinued it. And
Those
they
are unicorns.
Yeah, they replaced it with the D74, but the D74 doesn't do full duplex, which is a real drag. So at this point, if you're just getting started, you're probably better off just purchasing 2 separate HTs. I just got a setup for my girlfriend, N9NCY, and she's using 2 Yaesu FT65s, and they work fine. Nothing wrong with them.
Okay.
See, I don't know why the vendors are so adverse to full frontal duplex these days.
Mhm.
It used to be
I mean, it's like a feature they took away.
Yeah.
it used to be a lot more popular.
I see what you did there.
So
We like him though, but
Okay, grown-ups are back now.
So the popular radios, those little 817s, huh? A lot of guys
yeah.
like those.
The 817s. So for my portable satellite pack, because I do a lot of satellite activity on the road, which is roving. We can talk about that if you want. I use 2 817s in a camera bag with a handheld dual band Yagi called an Arrow. And that combination works great. It's extremely lightweight. It's full duplex on FM and sideband satellites, and it fits. I mean, the whole thing weighs like 8 or 10 pounds. I mean, it's great.
Right.
Didn't Watson have a duplex HT that people switched to?
I honestly don't know the answer to that.
I think
Sorry.
it's the
Wushan?
KG8.
Yeah.
There's
The
well,
ocean, yeah.
There's a list I've seen, and you'll have to Google around for it because I don't know the link. I've read it before, and it may be saved in my bookmarks. But I've seen the list of HTs that are full duplex, but and the 72 is on it, like Sean's talking about.
Right.
But I don't think any of those, almost none of those, are in production.
Right.
They're all older HTs.
I would suggest that people who are interested in finding that, I would say do a Google search for Patrick WD9EWK. The amount of support information and documentation he's provided on various radios that do satellite operating is remarkable. So take a look at, do a Google search for Patrick Whiskey Delta 9 Echo Whiskey Kilo. He's got tons of info about that stuff. He's a great resource.
Awesome. And you just answered Glenn's question.
8H.
And you just answered Glenn's question about what is the ideal antenna to use. It's the Arrow Yagi is currently the reigning champion.
That is definitely the front runner at this point. There are a couple of others. I believe E Antenna has a dual band VHF UHF Yagi now. There's also a log periodic it's a 5-element log periodic known as the Elk antenna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any one of those antennas are going to work just fine. If you're a home brewer, you can brew your own VHF, UHF satellite Yagis. What is that gentleman's call? I believe it's WA5VJB, Victor Juliet Bravo. And he has a series of articles on his website called the Cheap Yagi Antennas. And they're fantastic. And, they cost nothing to build. And that'll, if you're a home brewer or a DIYer and you want to save a few bucks and make your own antennas, those are very, very good modeled antennas, and they'll work great.
Right.
That's awesome.
And again, like you said, you could leverage 2 bow fangs and probably rock and roll fairly well.
I know a lot of people who got started on satellites using 2 bow fangs. They're not fantastic. I would definitely encourage somebody to upgrade to a better radio as soon as they possibly can. But if you're just getting started and you're on a budget, nothing wrong with them.
Well, there's obviously an element of preparedness and skill and all of the, some talent there, but there's also an element of luck. Like I've seen in videos where people have reasonably sophisticated setups and seem to be reasonably informed, and they have zero luck picking up any of the birds. But then, somebody else will go out there with their bowfang and be like, my bowfang can pick up, and they just happen to tune in right at the time and get them. So
right.
Yep. Well, I mean, it's just like any other aspect of ham radio. There's no 100% guarantee. You can improve the quality of the equipment that you use. You can improve the your knowledge base and your data's your access to data of when satellites are going to be passing overhead, which satellites are active, because sometimes satellites are inactive during a pass over your part of the world. Right. There are websites that give you access to all that kinds of information. There are apps that track the satellites as they're passing overhead, so you know when and where to point your antenna. But even with all of that information and with all of your skill set, sometimes things are just going to go against you and you don't get in. I've been on a couple of roves in the past year or two where I was trying to hand out a rare grid down in Florida for a bunch of European satellite operators, and I totally botched it. I mean, I just fell flat on my face and I didn't get in and make a single contact. So stuff like that happens from time to time,
But did you have a crowd of people watching you?
I didn't have a crowd of people watching me in person, but I sure had a lot of people on Twitter waiting for like, where the heck are you, man? And it's humbling, no matter how much you prep for it, there's always going to be something that happens on occasion that just, doesn't go your way. So you gotta roll with the punches.
No demo survives first contact. That's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah, never.
I saw one from the Ham Bandit. He says the FT991A is a dual VFO, works great. I'd like to see how that one works, to tell you the truth.
Some of the
Since I have one.
Right. Some of the DC to daylight radios that you can use as a mobile rig, or even if operating from your house and stuff like that, some of those will work okay, but not all of them are full duplex radios. The term full duplex describes being able to hear your transmitted signal through the satellite in real time. So as you are transmitting, your second VFO can receive what it's copying off of the satellite downlink as you are speaking. Not every HF rig that has dual VFOs is full duplex.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, think about it like what I always tell people when they ask, they're like, "Hey, what exactly is a full duplex?" And I say it's your cell phone. It's probably the best example
Yep.
of full duplex.
Modern cell phones, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
The flat cell phones.
Old
Yeah,
twisted pair telephones, the old landlines, that's full duplex too.
So the speakerphone on your home line is usually a half duplex configuration. And what you'll notice when you're talking on a device like that is if two people, and it happens on the streams here a lot too, if two people try to talk at the exact same time, nobody can be heard. You can't hear them. They can't hear you. They don't know you're trying to talk, so they're still talking. They're not listening to you, so you're still talking, and nothing's actually happening, and everybody's just getting frustrated. That's half duplex. Full duplex, we can kind of have this give and take conversation. So as I'm talking right now, Abe can make some snide.
I can talk over the top of him and make snide.
Jim can talk right over top of me. Yeah, Jim's got a good example. He's more on point this morning. So that's how half duplex and full duplex works, and that's why you'd want something. So you guys mentioned the Yaesu FT817818 series of radios, and when people use those, they use two of them stacked together in order to make their contacts listen on one, transmit on the other. So it can be as expensive as you want it to be, or it can be two Baofangs happy.
That's true. And a lot of satellite operators that do portable operating, the two radios out of the camera bag that I was describing earlier, a lot of them are switching to the ICOM 705s now too. Those are very high quality radios.
4 times the money.
Exactly. But what do you want to do?
You can buy two 817s for that.
But it's not full duplex.
No, the 705s are not, and neither are the 817s. That's why you need two of them.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah.
Four.
Hey, honey,
Actually,
I'm going to spend $3,000 to buy two 705s and an antenna so I can talk to satellites and talk to my man Sean in Illinois. It's cool for like 3 seconds one day.
For 3 seconds. Yeah.
So I can take my 857 with the 817 and stack them because the 857's bigger, but
the only concern that you really have to worry about is your transmitted power. You really don't need more than about 5 watts of transmitted power up into the satellites. Plus, some of these satellites are kind of fragile at this point. There is a very, very old satellite that's been around since 1974 called Oscar 7. And it was launched in 74. It went dark in the early 80s. And then 10 years, 12 years later, out of nowhere, it just popped back up, and it's been active ever since. But it is venerable, to say it lightly. It's a very fragile bird. It's been in orbit for almost 50 years at this point. So if you transmit with too much power, you can overload the circuit, and it'll actually shut down. So 5 watts is more than enough power to get into satellites. So
that just
please don't
have to buy two. I don't have to buy 2 radios then.
Yeah, please don't transmit with more than 5 watts of power.
Oscar 7 came back online when SG1 gated through and fixed that from the other galaxy, and that's how that got fixed. So we have a question about Doppler.
Yeah, we kind of lost track on Doppler there.
Yeah. So Marvin's asking, why does Doppler not affect your transmission? Oh, it does.
That's a good question. So Doppler, it's not a question. This is kind of a paradigm shift. So it's not a question of Doppler affecting your transmit versus your receive. It's a question of what band are you transmitting or receiving on. Doppler affects higher frequencies more than it affects lower frequencies. So in terms of satellites, we're talking about 2 bands, 2 meters, 144 megs, or 70 centimeters, 435 megs. Doppler is going to be much more pronounced on 70 centimeters than it is on 2 meters. So in terms of satellite operating, if you are transmitting, basically you need to compensate for the Doppler effect on whatever your 70 centimeter frequency is. So if you're using a satellite that transmits on 70 centimeters, you will need to adjust your transmit frequency as the satellite is passing overhead to keep your transmit and your receive frequency aligned. If you are using a satellite that has a downlink on 70 centimeters, you will need to adjust your receive frequency as the satellite is passing overhead to keep your transmit and your receive frequency in line. So it's not a question of adjusting your transmit or your receive frequency. It's a question of making sure that your 70 centimeter frequency, whether that is transmit or receive, is properly aligned with your 2 meter frequency throughout the duration of the pass.
Do you find it's a little more forgiving to adjust the Doppler on the receive side on 70 or the transmit side?
I find
I would guess receive.
Absolutely, because as the satellite is passing overhead, it's easier for you to hear when your receive frequency is getting a little out of alignment, especially on an FM satellite, because your receive when your receive frequency is getting a little out of alignment, you'll start to hear a little more static, and your audio quality will be affected, and that's an audio cue for you to adjust your receive frequency on 70. If you're transmitting on 70 centimeters, you need to make sure that you can hear yourself on the downlink, because otherwise you may not know if you're getting into the satellite or not when you're transmitting. And me personally, I find that it is much easier to adjust my 70 centimeter receive frequency as opposed to my 70 centimeter transmit frequency.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If you are doing a linear satellite that uses sideband or CW, that adjustment is much easier, because instead of working in 5 kilohertz increments and trying to get your transmitted signal in between 100 other people that are trying to access an FM satellite, infinitely more easier on the sideband satellites, because you've got a lot more bandwidth to play with.
Right. Now, what kind of power do you use for the sideband satellites?
5 watts.
5 watts still.
5 watts.
Now,
go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, still 5 watts. Okay.
5 watts is it. That's all you really need. 5 watts. And in my case, I use an Arrow antenna, and that provides anywhere from, I'll say, roughly 8 dB gain on 2 meters and 70 centimeters. That's more than enough to make it into even the linear satellites. That's fine.
So when you're doing a linear, obviously you're not doing that on an HT. You're doing that on a something that's got SSB on it.
Right.
So that's not something you can really do from inside the house. You've got to be able to aim the antenna.
Oh,
that's
not necessarily true. I mean, there are big
I'm all
antennas
about inside.
Right. Oh, you can't use an Arrow antenna inside. I mean, I'm sure there are people who have done it, but
right.
If you want to operate from home, you can get a radio that does a radio combination that does 2 meters and 70 centimeters, and you can get an antenna, a setup of beam antennas, and put it on a tower or on your roof or something like that. And there are rotators that actually track both azimuth and elevation, and you can interface that with software programs, and it will automatically track the satellite as it goes overhead for you.
There's guys who build those trackers out of like Raspberry Pis and Arduinos and stuff like that. So
yeah, have you done any of that? I haven't personally used any of that, but I know that there are several projects like that, and I know people who use them, and they're quite effective. So again, if you want to build stuff, there's tons of stuff like that out there for you to try.
That project just screams, I need to build an automatic satellite.
They had this one guy had a specific photography tripod that you had to buy, and he had all the instructions to do it with Arduino, and then when you set up in the field, you just type in your GPS coordinates, and then it did the rest.
That's awesome.
Yep.
So
that's awesome.
Jim, don't you have a 9700?
No.
Or not? Oh, you're thinking about getting one, maybe.
No.
Now will that radio do everything?
Yeah, I've got a 9700. I love it. It's great. It's full duplex.
It does everything.
Yeah,
okay. You can
interface it with a program that AMSAT sells called SAT PC32. There's a Mac program that does this as well. I apologize, I'm not a Mac user, so I can't remember the name of that off the top of my head. But yeah, you can interface your radio directly to. You can interface your computer to your 9700 or a couple of other full duplex satellite radios, and it'll track all that stuff for you automatically. Some of them even have a pretty decent algorithm of compensating for Doppler automatically as well. It's not 100%, but it's pretty good.
That's slick.
Yeah.
That's slick. So you have to have, that was kind of where I was going with the antenna question, Sean. So you have to have an antenna that it's not going to be the Yagi you use to talk to the other people on the 2 meter repeater. It's got to be able to angle up to track the satellite.
That is the most efficient and effective way of using the satellites, is being able to either, having a handheld Yagi that you can point at the satellite as it's passing overhead, or having a tower with a couple of Yagis on it interfaced with your computer that will track it automatically. But that's right. The most effective way to access the satellites. However, that's not the only way that you can do it. For example, I have at my house, my home station, I use a 9700, and I've got a 70 centimeter Yagi. I've got a 15 element 70 centimeter Yagi, and I've got a 7 element 2 meter Yagi. They are fixed horizontal, so they only they're only in the horizontal plane. I don't have an elevation control on them. But I can still get into many satellite passes using those two antennas. I can't access all of them. And if a satellite is very high in elevation relative to my location, if the satellite gets too high up in the sky, I can't hear it anymore. So it doesn't work all of the time. But if that's all you have, it's a good way to get started. Even if you just have like a dual band vertical, you can get started trying to listen and access some of the satellite passes. You won't succeed 100% of the time, but you will get into some of them.
That's
interesting.
Awesome. Okay.
Is there a piece of software or an app for a phone that you use to track them?
Yeah, my favorite is an app called GoSat Watch. It costs, it's not cheap as far as apps go. It's in the neighborhood of $10, but I find it to be the most reliable app that I've ever used. There are a couple of other free apps. I think there's one for iPhones called SatSat. I believe that's a free one. But for me, the features that GoSat Watch offers and the ability, yeah, that's it right there. Yeah. So that the ability to use GoSat Watch and have it update the positions of the satellites on a regular basis, so I don't have to do that manually. If a new satellite is launched, it gets added to the satellite database automatically, and it uses the GPS of your phone to figure out your location and then shows you what satellites are going to be overhead automatically. So for me, that's $10 well spent. Like I said, there are other options available for you if you don't want to spend $10 for an app. But for me, that was a no-brainer. I love the thing.
I think I have that app, and I think I looked at a bunch of satellite apps, and there's a lot of them out there. Mm-hmm. And then I believe I've watched several of your videos, and you must have mentioned it in there because I ended up settling on that one. Mm-hmm. And it is complete. It's got everything in it, and I think NASA has something as well.
There are a couple of there's an astronomy group called Heavens Above that has a satellite tracking app for Android phones. If you're on that OS, you can check that out. I believe AMSAT Droid is another satellite tracking program you can get if you're using an Android. What else have we got? There are a couple of websites that you can check out. AMSAT.org has a satellite tracking app on its website where you punch in the satellite that you're interested in tracking along with your grid square, and it will show you upcoming passes for your location that you enter on their website. And then there's another website called N2YO, November 2 Yankee Oscar.com.
I've seen that guy.
Yeah, that one shows all sorts of great information on tracking satellites. So yeah, you got some options out there.
And I think that ISS detector is the other one I was thinking of. I may have thought it was NASA, but Marvin mentioned it. And I think I have that as well. Because most of these satellite apps will also show you the ISS's
That's correct.
path.
Which is important.
Have you worked ISS?
I have worked the ISS. It's one of the more popular FM satellites, quote unquote satellites out there. Because it's got a transceiver on board the ISS, and sometimes it's turned on to a digipeater mode. So if you want to use packet through a satellite, you can do that as well. It's one of the more popular FM satellites that's out there. So usage is pretty high. So sometimes it can be a little frustrating trying to get into it. But it's out there for people to use and enjoy if you want to try it, for sure.
Yeah, I know people who've done like APRS and stuff like that with the ISS. They seem to be rather popular for that.
Yep.
Now, Sean, we got some pictures here. Are we ready for pictures?
Oh boy.
Show and
pictures.
tell.
That's what I said. I said pictures. I said it like Abe would say.
Sending us more pictures.
If I can do this and make sure I don't show the websites I was looking at, we'll be all right.
Oh, yeah, don't show those.
Not like you did on the other stream yesterday.
Right.
Okay, so we're kind of deviating at this point a little bit.
Oh, we lost you got very quiet.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but you changed mics or something?
Oh, hang on. One moment, please. Is that any better?
Much. Way better.
All right. Yep. Sorry about that. Anyway, so we kind of shifted tacks here a little bit. This is actually an image of the PSK Reporter website from May 7th when there was a great 6-meter opening from Illinois down to South America.
Nice.
And these are all of the flags that I got where I was received on 6-meter FT8 from here in Central Illinois.
That's great.
Yeah, so we can talk about 6 meters later if you want.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that's a grid square map of the 488 Maidenhead grid squares in the continental United States, and those are the ones that I've communicated with on 6 meters from here in Illinois. But if you want to go to the next one,
I just wanted to point out. You see that I'm in 62, and I can drive to 61, and probably for the cost of a Diet Dr. Pepper. So I'm cool with that.
Man, if you can do that, I'll send you 3 Diet Dr. Peppers.
Oh, sweet.
No cheer wine. Isn't that big down
That
there?
was too easy,
wine?
Jim.
Right.
That was too easy, Jim. I hold out for a 6-pack.
I'll go 4, but that's my upper limit. So anyway, this map that we're looking at, this is no, go back to the previous one. There you go. That's it.
The mouse jumped.
You're messing with me, man. So this one, this is a map of all 488 grid squares in the continental United States that I have communicated with on satellite. There is an award called the Gridmaster Award, which is handed out to people who make
That sounds official.
well, it kind of is. It's kind of a big deal.
I am
It's
the
an award.
map
It's
keeper.
official.
Are you the grid master?
I'm the arrow holder.
There's only was it Zor?
There can be only Zul.
Zool.
So the Gridmaster Award is given out to satellite operators that confirm all 488 grids in the continental United States. And as of a couple of days ago, there were about 45 or so hams who have done that. The big factor in completing this is that in a lot of these grids, especially the ones out west that you can see in this in my slide, some of these grids don't
Ain't nobody live there.
no, there are no active satellite operators there. There are other hams that live there, but they don't do satellite stuff. And some of the grids are in the middle of water, so you need to have somebody who's willing to go in a boat to go activate some of these grids. There was just a big operation a couple of weeks ago from one of the grids off the coast of Los Angeles, which is DM02, and there was an active satellite operator who's based in Alaska, WL7T. Tyler, he travels all over the United States and puts on the rarest of the rare grids. And he chartered a boat and was out there for several hours in that grid, and a lot of satellite operators worked him out there. So that was a big deal.
That's awesome.
Yep. This is a map of the grid squares that I have transmitted from via satellite. So the Central States VHF Society offers an award called the Reverse VUCC Award. VUCC is an ARRL award called the VHF UHF Century Club, and you get that if you make contact with 100 different grid squares anywhere in the world. The Reverse VUCC Award that Central States offers is for transmitting from 100 different grids, and there are about a dozen, maybe 2 dozen folks who have achieved that on satellite as well. And I'm close. I got about 20 more grids to go.
So whenever you pack up and go somewhere, you got the sat kit going with you, or?
Oh yeah, I take it everywhere I go. All right. So
This is where Ape lives, right here in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska.
awesome. All right. Well, we need to talk. So okay. So this is a Coffee and Ham Radio's exclusive, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh yeah.
That's right.
So,
Ladies and gentlemen.
So I am my girlfriend Nancy N9NCY and I are planning a multi-grid rove in July, and we are going to be passing through approximately 45 different grids in the course of 2 to 3 weeks in July.
Wow.
So real quick, Sean, I want to update your itinerary there. There's this spot between EN01, EN11, EN00, and EN10 where you could be in almost 4 grids at once. You're this close, man.
I'll have to take a look and see if it's on private property and if it's in the middle of a forest or something like that to see if it's accessible. People have transmitted from the intersection of 4 grids before. It can be done. It's very tricky, but it can be done. You got to have a really good GPS to make sure you're actually at the intersection. So
DM 38, 39, you're down there where the yellow, where the ketchup and mustard cross.
Yeah,
you have four of them there.
So when you said a rove, so that's what you and your girlfriend are going to do is transmit from multiple grid squares, transmit and receive, Poppy. But
that's correct. So the idea is so roving is basically transmitting from a location that is other than your house. So, portable operators do it. Roving is a term that is used primarily by satellite operators and 6-meter and VHF, UHF operators whenever they're transmitting from a grid square that is not the same one that they live in. So in this case, I'm looking at trying to transmit from multiple grids on both satellite and 6 meters throughout July of 2022. Now, some of this is going to be, we're not going to be able to activate every single grid that we are passing through, because if we did that, we'd never get to where we want to go. So,
right.
So some of this stuff is going to be done while mobile, which is posing some very interesting technical hurdles to clear. So we're still working the bugs out on some of that.
Are you doing this in a VW bus? I mean,
that would be awesome if we could do that.
Yeah, that would be
Unfortunately, we don't have
a bug or a bus.
If somebody wants to loan us a VW bus, that would be great. We'd love to hear from you.
I'm picturing you driving with one hand and aiming a satellite out the window. Have you got it now? Have you got key up? Hold the radio up. I can't talk. Turn it up.
Don't tempt me.
No Doppler effect required. You just drive.
Right. Drive faster.
Right.
I got a question for you, Sean.
Geosynchronous ham radio operation.
You were saying that verticals like a dual bander will work, right?
It'll work. They're not ideal, but it'll work.
How about a dipole for like 2 meters? 70 centimeters.
If you're really skilled, you might be able to get away with it. If you're just starting out on satellites, don't give yourselves hurdles and obstacles that are going to interfere with your success.
When you're talking about,
I'm sure that it could technically be done. I've never tried it. I've made a few satellite contacts on the linear satellites while mobile, using just a couple of mobile whips. And, that is far from ideal. There are a lot of problems with trying to access satellites like that. If you are brand new, don't try that, because it's just going to be an exercise in frustration for you. I was just trying to figure out a way for mobile for you, because I've got a nice little dipole setup. Right. I've done a couple of experiments again with the linear satellites while just using a couple of mobile dual band mobile mag mount whips, and the quality of the operation is definitely substandard. Again, this is not an ideal way to do satellites. Right. If you can do satellites while you've got an arrow antenna or much better gain antennas, you're going to be happier, because you're going to hear more people and more people are going to hear you. It's the only reason why I'm considering this while mobile is that we're on such a tight schedule for some of this activity that if we don't try to make some contacts while mobile, we're not going to have an opportunity to put these grids on the air at all. And some of them are pretty rare. So I figure it's worth doing some experimenting and trying to activate these grids while mobile, as opposed to no activity whatsoever. But it is. Gotcha. It is very much a compromise situation. There are going to be situations on that section of our rove where, I'm going to try to activate a grid and I'm going to fail miserably. I'm not going to hear anybody. Nobody's going to hear us. But it's better, in my opinion, it's better to try from some of these rare grids with what I am capable of doing than not activating the rare grid at all.
Gotcha.
Somebody was asking if the atmospheric conditions where you're going to be operating play an impact, and this is all line of sight. So I'd imagine that you're not relying on skywave propagation by any means, but potentially a thunderstorm might monkey with you a little bit.
And you should be standing outside holding an antenna up in the air during a thunderstorm.
Yeah.
for the best
Well,
ozone
somewhere
experience.
somewhere in those pictures I sent you is me standing in the middle of a rainstorm activating a grid in Wisconsin, and I'm just getting dumped on by the rain.
Well,
Priorities,
I've got
man,
those.
priorities.
We can go
Sure.
on to those. I also
Okay.
had Adam asked one question here. There's actually a couple 3 questions in there. Is there a way
Sure.
to track where you're going to be? Are you going to tweet as you go?
I'll tweet as I go, but I mean, if as looking at this map, once we get up into Montana, like the blue portion of the blue segment of this rove, while we're on the rove, I mean, there is nothing up there in terms of
Probably no cell
infrastructure.
coverage.
So, yeah, I mean, some of this area is going to be pretty darn remote. I'm looking into doing some APRS stuff possibly, but as of now, there are going to be segments where I'm not going to be able to tweet or communicate where I'm at. You're just going to have to tune for me and listen. So I'm trying to set up an itinerary and a day-to-day schedule that I will publish once things get a little closer and I have a better sense of where I'm going to be when.
What about Instagramming any pictures of boutique coffee? Like
I could do that.
Sure.
He doesn't even drink coffee.
I know.
I don't.
No,
Not you.
I'm
I
with you.
see
No,
what's
the
going
smart aleck below
Hey
you.
now.
It just seems it's a popular thing to do. Like whenever I eat at the pho restaurant, I Instagram a picture of the soup. I mean,
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
I do
right.
too.
Instagram your
Yeah.
bond me. Oh Lord. Okay. All right. So let's move on to some pictures again.
More pictures. So what we're looking at here, this is a map. So we're getting back into satellites at this point. So what we're looking at here, this is an area of coverage of the maximum distance between FM satellites and the linear satellites that use sideband and CW. Now this is centered on, I believe this one's centered on Chicago. So the inner circle that you're looking at, that is a coverage area of 5,000 kilometers in every direction from Chicago. The outer band is 8,000 kilometers, which is roughly the maximum limit that a linear satellite can do. So if you are interested in trying to get long haul contacts on satellite, you can see that it is definitely to your advantage to shift over to the linear satellites that use sideband and CW, because you get approximately 3,000 kilometers of extra distance coverage on a linear satellite than you get on the FM satellites. Now, the 5,000 kilometer and 8,000 kilometer numbers that I'm throwing out there, those are the mathematical maximum distance coverages of the satellites. So anything beyond that is pretty much mathematically impossible. So and that is because the area of coverage that a satellite has is known as a footprint, and as the satellite is passing overhead, the area of coverage is constantly shifting. So the footprint, the dimensions of a satellite's footprint is determined by how high up in the sky a satellite is. So some of the linear satellites are higher in orbit than some of the FM satellites. So these are rough numbers based on the distance records of contacts made on the various satellites. And AMSAT keeps track of distance records on their website, amsat.org. So if you're interested in using a particular satellite, you can go to amsat.org and see what the distance QSO records are for each of the active satellites. But
if you want to make
DX, this is all 5 watts. It's all 5 watts. So if you want to make DX contacts, you would definitely want to shift over to the linear satellites, because it just affords you much more areas of coverage than the FM satellites do. This is a photo taken from one of the rarer grid squares in the United States. This is up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, on the Keweenaw Peninsula near Copper Harbor. This is grid EN67, and there is in this amazingly flat chunk of terrain in the middle of the rarest grid up in Upper Michigan, there is a mountain that's about 1,900 feet above sea level called Brockway Mountain. And it's a huge tourist destination. They got a road that goes up there. And you can see for miles up there. And numerous satellite operators will transmit from there every year. VHF and UHF operators will go up there to hand out the rare grid square, especially during the summer sporadic E season, for when 6 meters gets really hot in North America. They'll go up there and they'll take gear and hand out EN67 for the 6 meter crowd. So it's an incredible vista up there in the middle of what is an otherwise flat terrain.
What radio are you using when you're out there?
I'm using 2 817s. Yep. So this is me standing at the intersection of 4 grid squares just outside of Wausau, Wisconsin. And this is a tourist destination that the county put together, and they brought in a professional survey crew and got the intersection of, let me get this right, I believe it's 45 degrees north latitude and 90 degrees west longitude, and they got it down to, a couple of inches with extremely sophisticated GPS equipment. And so they've set this up as a marker. It's a big tourist destination there now, and you can because they've mapped it out so precisely. It's a great way to transmit from 4 different grid squares simultaneously.
Okay, so I don't want to be that guy, but in this picture, you can see that you're only standing in 2 grid squares, not in all 4. But since you're wearing what appears to be a Coffee and Ham Radio shirt, we're going to allow it.
Right. So. Yeah. So the radio is leaning over into one grid, and part of my butt is in the other grid. Yeah. So I mean, it gets pretty. So there are a few people in the satellite community who take this very, very seriously, as they should. So if you're going to claim that you're transmitting from 4 grid squares, you have to have a component of your station and your person in all 4 of the squares simultaneously. So if you can't provide a link to if you can't provide a solid GPS reading that will definitively pinpoint you in all 4 grids, don't try it.
Thank you,
and a photo.
Thank you.
Oh, T-Ray, there, golf clap.
Right. Shooter Ready Standby contributed on the Buy Me a Coffee site, so thank you, sir.
Oh, sweet.
All right. What else we got?
It's your pictures, man. I don't know.
This is the next segment. You're in a field.
So this is me. So a lot of these shots are me doing rover stuff where I'm transmitting from different grids. This is me transmitting from Montana in 2017. This is DN74 in the middle of I'm sorry, this is not Montana, this is Wyoming. Montana's a little later, I think. Anyway, this is me on a very high hill in Wyoming near Sundance, Wyoming. And if you look very carefully in the background of that shot, you will see Devil's Tower. So my operating site is on this hill that is taller than Devil's Tower.
That's where the aliens landed. That's where the gold parked.
Yeah, so if you like mashed potatoes, that's the place to go.
Right.
What is that? Okay, so this is on the same rove that I did last summer with Nancy, N9NCY, and this is from EN 56.
56. Yep.
EN 56. Yeah. So this is we were actually doing some Parks on the Air stuff as well, but EN 56 is a semi-rare grid on satellites, and we just happened to be at a very gorgeous spot. So I took the time to do a satellite pass from there, and the.
Well, it's also very cool. You have a girlfriend who's into this, because Mrs. Perry has nothing to do with the radio stuff. She's like, what? Nope.
N9NCY. She is a real gem. She's a real jewel. I am very grateful. So this is a shot of my current VHF, UHF antennas that I have at home. So I've got a 3-element 6-meter Yagi, I've got a 7-element 2-meter Yagi, and I've got a 15-element 70-centimeter Yagi. So I do the satellite passes from home using the 2-meter Yagi and the 70-centimeter Yagi. Again, I talked about this a little bit ago, about how these antennas are fixed in the horizontal plane, and I can't change the elevation of them, so I can only rotate them in the azimuth plane. So they are not ideal for satellite work. But I do 2-meter and 70-centimeter terrestrial work for on FT8. So I try to work grid squares on 6, 2, and 70 centimeters. So I need those antennas to be in a good horizontal plane for my weak signal VHF, UHF activity. So basically I'm just using them as a compromise antenna on the satellites as well. Like I said, there are many satellite passes from home that I can't hear the satellite at all because it's just too high in elevation and my antennas won't pick it up. So
right.
Thank you, Marvin.
If it's thanks, Marvin. So if that's all you have, it'll work, but it won't work 100% of the time. You know, like I said, these are great antennas for terrestrial propagation, but for satellites, it is a huge compromise because I can't track the satellite as it's going overhead, but I make do, you know.
No, but it's cool that you're showing that, hey, you can get out there and you can do these things. You know, you don't need the overly sophisticated setups.
Right.
Then the other
And
thing,
so-
and
Oh,
I know
go
it
ahead,
begs the point, but this is all with a technician license, right? So I know a lot of people are like, go on and
Yeah.
get your generals, get you the HF, and you get the real Hammond. This is pretty technical stuff that requires some pretty good skill set and some planning.
And
Don't
all
get
of
more
this
real
stuff,
than this.
all of the satellite stuff, there's 98% of the satellites that you can hit, you can do so with a technician class license. So if you just have a technician, you know, just a technician, don't let that stop you from experimenting with this stuff, because there is a whole world of ham radio that you have access to with a technician license, especially now that 10 meters is starting to open up,
Right.
and and the solar cycle is on the uptick. You can work some serious DX on 10 meters for the next few years. So by all means, if you have a technician class license, get on the air and start experimenting with this stuff, because you'll have a lot of fun.
So I was called away there for a second. That was 6.2 and 70 that you had on the tower?
That's correct. And Don, I see your question here on the screen. If you fix the elevation at about 30 degrees, would that help with a tower mounted Yagi? It would. 30 degrees might be a little high. I know several people who if they have antennas in a fixed position like that, they will alter the elevation for satellite work, and they will set it at around 15 to 20 degrees fixed elevation, and then just rotate it using a standard rotator. That seems to work pretty good for folks. I wasn't interested in pursuing that because I want to have my antennas available for weak signal VHF, UHF terrestrial propagation as well. But that's a good compromise. There are a lot of people who do that with Yagi antennas for satellite work if they don't have an azimuth and a rotator.
This picture actually answered a question I was going to ask you earlier. Oops, darn it. So that 5,000 kilometer footprint, or did you say 5,000 miles or 5,000 clicks?
That's 5,000 kilometers. The unit of measurement for the satellite community is generally kilometers.
Is clicks.
Yeah.
So this is going to be roughly 3,000 miles. My question was, and this shows it. So the dot that he's transmitting from here is now centered around New York, Boston area. And it moved where he this mouse is super jumpy. It moved the
too much
What
coffee
in the world?
too much coffee.
Jim's
It
having
moved the
equipment
footprint.
malfunctions.
No, the mouse scroll wheel moves if you look at it. And so
A
anyway,
poor
so
contestant
this is-
always blames his equipment.
A poor carpenter.
blames his tools, right? So you can see here that he lost part of South America, but gained more in the middle of the North Atlantic Ocean and Greenland, because the transmission dot is up in the northeast.
Correct. Yeah.
So I would get a lot more of South America from being in central Alabama.
Oh, very much so. I mean, the further south you go, the area of coverage is going to shift further south. So yeah, you would get more South America from a lower latitude like that.
And then there's the West Coast. So that looks like your area, Chuck. That's about San Francisco, isn't it? Sacramento, somewhere up there?
Yeah, that one's based on San Francisco. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can see, like, if you shift between the area of coverage for San Francisco and New York City, you'll see how much the West Coast loses of Europe. So if you're on the West Coast, even with the linear and sideband satellites, you're going to have a real hard time working into Europe. The compensation that you get on the West Coast is that you have access to a few more countries in Asia. And the other big one that a lot of folks don't realize is for a large chunk of New England, even on the linear satellites, it's mathematically impossible to make a contact into Hawaii. So for stations in New England, for satellite operators in New England, it's impossible to get worked all states. You can't do it. So
try Baja there. Try Baja California there.
Well, can they do work all states with the linear SSB option?
No, you can't. Even with the linear satellites from large chunks of New England, the area of coverage, even with the linear satellites, it's mathematically impossible to make it all the way out to Hawaii. Once you get out to Pennsylvania, I believe, like eastern Pennsylvania, then you start having a sliver of a chance. But even then, conditions, the satellite passes need to line up just right, because you're talking about trying to communicate from both extreme edges of a satellite's footprint, and the opening that it coexists between New England and Hawaii in those cases may be less than a minute. So you really have to line stuff up just right.
That's
maybe we
Hawaii
can get
right down here.
Congress to move them back to a U.S. territory from a state, and then that fixes that problem.
Then that problem is solved. That should be Hawaii right there, which is at the very, very mathematical edge of that. Those are interesting slides. Those two right there. That's great, because that shows the huge difference. Chuck, you can work all the grid squares in the Pacific. I can't touch them.
Right. I mean, this map is a little bit misleading, because it looks like you've got all this great area of coverage in the Pacific if you're on the West Coast. But the fact of the matter is that it's primarily water, and there aren't that many.
Right.
There aren't that many DXCC entities in the Pacific that you can work. So
how about if you drop that at South America, you might have a lot of coverage, huh? The lower mid South America.
You might. That's a good point. I should do a map and show the area of coverage for, say, Sao Paulo, just to see what it looks like.
Yeah.
So do you? And I this is just my ignorance showing, like with the geostationary satellites, is that something that folks use for these? Or, like, I know a lot of people in the software defined radio community use those for weather imagery, but I don't know if there's any hams operating on those.
So as of now, there's one geostationary satellite called QO100, but unfortunately, the area of coverage for that satellite is it was launched by the Qataris. And it's centered over the Middle East and Africa and Europe. A tiny sliver of South America has access to use that satellite, and it's great if you have access to it. But we here in North America, we don't have access to that satellite. We are outside of that satellite's footprint. So unless we find another organization that can piggyback some amateur radio activity on a geo satellite that's going to be launched that covers North America, we're going to have to rely on the low Earth orbits for now.
Gotcha. And then I'm sharing a screen, so Jim, if you can fire me up there real quick.
I don't have it yet.
It's in the bottom of the fire mode.
I don't have it. It's not there, buddy.
Come on, son.
Oh, there it is. Now it showed up. Well, it wasn't there. I'm sorry, man.
So
yell at me. Yell at me.
I just wanted to give Sean a little bit of a plug. He's actually writing articles over here for On All Bands, which is a really, really nice blog for amateur radio operators. And he talks.
Sorry, I stepped away for a minute there, Ape. I would have handled that for you.
No, thanks. But there's a bunch of stuff here. So if we don't get in everything in detail today, I've dropped a couple links to this in the chat. You can check this out as well.
Yeah, I've been blogging for DX Engineering for a few years now, and I talk about all my main stuff is about operating. So I enjoy portable operating, and I like DXing and satellite work and 6 meters and QRP. My stuff is talking about operating. There are plenty of other bloggers out there who talk about the more technical side, and the stuff I focus on is about getting out and actually operating and doing ham radio. So I try to promote the active side, the fun side of it. If you're more interested in learning about the tech stuff, I'm not your guy. There's tons of other folks out there that can really, really chime in with the hardcore tech stuff if you want to build stuff. So, but if you want to learn about operating, check me out on DX Engineering's blog.
Well, I'm fired up for the satellite stuff again.
Right on.
The only problem I have with satellite, I live in Alabama, so from now until probably November, it's 100,000 degrees with 107% humidity outside.
Well, the satellites pass in the middle of the night too.
I know. Oh, there you go. I need to find satellites that I can hit in the shade. So I wanted to show this video that's under a tree.
Yeah,
with a fan.
Are you showing the video of the Rove?
Yeah,
is that what you're getting ready to do? Okay, so let me set this up a little bit. So this is So this is, again, roving is where you go out and you transmit on satellite, or in some cases on like 6 meters or 2 meters terrestrial. But in this case, this is satellite operating. So this is me operating on a rove that I did in 2020, where I activated, I believe it was around 12 grid squares in Iowa and Missouri on a 5-day rove. I just threw all my stuff in the car and a tent and did some camping and stuff like that, and just put on some grids in the Midwestern part of the United States that are relatively rare. And this particular video is me in a grid EN40, which straddles Illinois and Iowa right on the Mississippi River. And this is me using a Kenwood THD72 full duplex HT and an arrow antenna in the middle of a cornfield somewhere in, I think I was still in Illinois at this point. But this is just a clip of what an FM satellite sounds like, and what you can do if you are in a rare grid square, and how fast and you can make QSOs, and how many QSOs you can make in a 15-minute satellite pass. So this is just a snippet of that.
That was the point I was going to make. Is this, watching this is like, holy moly, this goes fast.
Yeah, this is
W4ZXT, KX9X Rover. KX9X, November 8, India Uniform, Papa, Echo November 81. W4ZXT, you're in the log. N8IUP, KX9X Rover, Echo Nancy 40. N6AJ, KX9X Rover, Echo Nancy 40. KX9X Whiskey 0, Nancy Bravo Charlie. 0 KX9X Rover, Echo Nancy 40. KX9X Lima Radio, Echo Mike 7 on the EO, W8. KX9X Whiskey 6 Alpha Alpha Echo Charlie Mike 98. Echo KX9X Rover, Echo Nancy 40, okay? Thank you.
so that's
So you was moving, son.
pretty fast and furious, I mean,
Now, are you recording? Are you recording that? Have you got a voice recorder or something wired in?
Right. So yeah, so that's one of the things that I get asked a lot is, how are you logging all of this stuff? And I've got my HT in one hand, I've got my antenna in the other. How do I log it? And I just record the satellite pass as it's going overhead, and I write it all down later. Right. And I talk about some of these techniques in the video series that I did for DX Engineering. So if you go to DX Engineering's YouTube channel, you'll find a series of videos that I did for them on getting started in operating satellites. So if you want to learn more, you can go check out the video series. And of course, if anybody's got a question, by all means, just email me. I'll happily talk you through it.
Now you're pretty active on Twitter as well, right?
Yeah, I try to stay active on Twitter as much as I can.
Excellent. So I want to talk about AMDX while we're here.
Oh, okay, sure.
It's 10:15, and we have dominated the satellite space this morning. So in your picture here, one of these was and I seem to have lost it, was an AMDX station map.
Yeah, okay. So I think I sent you a link to my Google Earth project.
Oh, that was it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So I got started, my interest in radio got started when I was a real young kid, when I started listening for faraway stations on the AM broadcast band. And a lot of hams of my age got started doing that as well. So if for those who don't know, the AM broadcast band, during daytime, an AM broadcast station will, their signal will travel maybe 50 or maybe 100 miles, depending on how much power they're transmitting with. But at night, the D layer of the ionosphere dissipates, and so the absorption of AM radio signals that occurs during the daytime, when the D layer of the ionosphere goes away, those signals propagate much farther, hundreds or even thousands of miles in some cases, depending on how much power the radio station is transmitting with. So I got started listening to AM broadcast band stuff when I was a real young kid, and that led to shortwave radio, and then that led to me getting my ham radio license. So I've been doing this for a long time, but I got away from it. I got more and more interested in it in the years in more recent years, and finally in March I decided to get pretty hot and heavy back into it again. And so this project that I've got here on Google Earth, this shows all of the AM broadcast stations that I've heard from here in central Illinois since late March, and I've picked up broadcast stations in 27 different states and 5 different countries. But some of the stations that I've picked up transmit with a lot of power. I mean, some of them, this whole map that I've done is color coded, and the white ones, the white pins on the map are 50 kilowatt broadcast stations. So they're really loud, and in some cases they have what are known as a clear channel, which means there's no other station that broadcasts on that frequency. So they're really easy to hear. Some of them, though, are remarkably low power, depending on the class of license that the FCC gives some broadcast stations. They have to drop their power at night to avoid interfering with other stations across the United States. And in this map, if you look for the purple ones and the black ones, those are stations that have been that I picked up at night that transmitted with, let's see, the purple ones are less than 500 watts and the black ones are less than 100 watts. So, I've picked up a station here in central Illinois. I've picked up a station down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, that was on 1260. With transmitting with they were transmitting with 127 watts of power, and you can get started doing this with any AM radio that you have. Just tune around at night and see.
No license.
And no license. You don't need a license for this at all. It's all listening. So.
So this station at 127 watts in Louisiana, that's because they were government down regulated to 127 watts, or that's all they ever transmit?
No, during the day they transmit with 5,000 watts, but at night they have to reduce power to, in their case, 127 watts, so that they don't interfere with other stations on 1260. Right.
Oh, that's a pretty big drop in power.
Oh yeah. Which that makes my reception of them that much more amazing to me. And you might ask, what kind of gear do you need for this? So for the, I listen on, I've got a standard AM FM clock radio next to my bed that I listen to some stuff with that. I've got an old 1938 Zenith AM radio that I use for some stuff, but if I'm doing really, really sophisticated hardcore DXing stuff, I use my ICOM 7300 with its general coverage receiver. And right now my antenna is an 88-foot dipole that I use for HF. And I load it up on 160, which is the ham radio band that I can load that antenna up on that's closest to the AM broadcast band. And I make do with that. So that's cool. About 30 feet. That's about 30 feet up. But yeah, a long piece of wire outside will work remarkably well, especially if you've got a decent receiver like the 7300 or a general coverage receiver like that. And this is a really fun way to experiment with radio and learn about propagation.
I do it all the time on my Yaesu.
It does not require a license. So,
just imagine if you had a flex, Chuck.
I know.
Oh man, some of the stuff that the more serious AM DXers are doing with SDR is it's amazing. They're recording the entire spectrum, the entire AM broadcast spectrum, and they're pulling out amazing stations with some of the filtering that's on that. I mean, it's pretty cool.
I hook up my doublet a lot every once in a while and listen to maybe FM. It actually gets better FM than any FM antenna I've ever had hooked at my house, because I'm kind of behind the stations I listen to. I'm behind a hill, so I don't always get them.
Yeah.
But my
That's
doublet
awesome.
works really good for that.
Yeah.
Somebody Marvin in the chat apparently is from the Chicago area as well. He mentioned WLS. I'm like, and I'm from Kankakee.
Yeah.
And all my relatives are in Southern Illinois. And I remember when I was a kid listening to WLS on a piece of junk transistor radio down in Mount Vernon, Illinois. I'm like, wow, that's awesome. I'm like, a whole day of my mother yelling at me in the car away from WLS.
I grew up listening to WLS too here in Champaign-Urbana, and
when they played rock and roll, because you got to be that old. You're close enough.
That's right. That's
on
right.
The AM side.
Larry Lujack and and John Records Landecker and all those guys.
Yeah, little Tommy.
Yep, that radio station had a huge impact on me. I actually went into broadcasting as a career because of Larry Lujak. So that was my first career out of college, was doing broadcasting and being a DJ. And WLS, they're a clear channel 50,000 watt radio station on 890, and they were heard regularly in New Mexico. They just had a humongous signal. They were amazing. And I've got a lot of
that's right.
Yeah, I got a lot of recordings of WLS from people who collect recordings of radio stations back in the day, and I've got several recordings of WLS in the 1970s, and they're just it's just a great trip down memory lane to listen to that stuff again.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now you do 6 meters, so we talked about 6 meters a little bit. Is this the hot season for 6 meters?
Yeah, 6 meters. So 6 meters is subject to the E layer of the ionosphere during the summer months, at least here in North America. Well, actually, it would be the summer months in the southern hemisphere as well, but that would be December or so. The primary here in North America, the primary season for 6 meters that hits sporadic E is like May through late July, early August. It's the primary activity is centered around the summer solstice, and when the E layer of the ionosphere gets charged up during the summer months, you can do amazing things on 6 meters with almost no antenna and no transmit power. It's a remarkable band. If you've got a decent station on 6, for example, I've got a 3-element Yagi at about 25 feet. I use FT8 at 100 watts or so. I also do some sideband and CW work on 6 meters. Every now and then you'll get a really, really solid opening here down into South America or into Europe in some cases. Double hop E-skip propagation out to the West Coast is always fun. Last year I heard, but I did not work 2 stations in Hawaii and 1 station in Alaska on 6 meters. So 6 meters during the summer months is definitely a fun place to be with your technician class license.
Right. Now you were talking about or Chuck, I think, mentioned it. What is a halo antenna? I'm working on. I've got my to-do list is a 6 meter dipole just for this. But what is a halo antenna?
Well, I've got a video on a 2 meter one, but what works really good is I think a 6 meter is about 2x2, somewhere around there.
Right. It's about right.
And what you can do, they have pretty good gain. They're kind of a different antenna. But what I would do is, in your case, get 2 of them and stack them from one of these companies, because it actually, I think they actually get more gain than a Yagi when you stack them. The difference, I think it's usually 3 dB, but I think it's a little bit more on the halos. But takes up hardly any space. Pretty easy to get up high because it's not long, But it's a little different because it's omnidirectional also. But it's horizontal. It's kind of a weird antenna. But you can make them pretty easy too. But there's a couple companies. I forget that one company.
M Squared makes a couple of them.
M Squared makes Theirs are a little more expensive. Some They're a little bit lighter weight ones. Right. And then there's another company that's near you someplace, Sean. The guy that makes stuff. I think he's in your area, not too far from you. I forget the name of it. If Gary's in here, Gary's bought his stuff. I don't know if Gary's still here. But,
how do you spell M Squared?
He's got the square one,
M2.
Right?
Yeah, their website is m2inc.com.
Yeah, there they are.
They make really good stuff. I've got their 2 meter 7-element.
That's exactly what I got too. Yeah.
It's not quite big enough for where I live, unfortunately. I live in a hole, so it's my 2 meter stuff's not the greatest.
There you go.
Well, show them. Go ahead and look at the halo. Show them what it is. They call theirs something else, but that's what it is.
I think they just call it a horizontal loop.
Yeah, I think so. Same thing though.
Yep.
How dare
them? Actually, that's the guy that runs the Bozo net. There it is down there.
There it is.
Would that be this guy? The whole loop. The whole loop.
Whole loop.
Yep, the whole loop. And it'll tell you if you go down a little lower, it'll give you the specs on it and the gain.
HO stack kit. Nice.
And then it'll also, they sell the whole kit, and then it'll also tell you what the gain is when you stack them. It's a little 3.24 or something. I can't remember.
You can also use these while mobile too, which in some cases provides a good polarization.
4 single,
advantage.
8 stacked.
Gary does that for 6 on his truck. He runs it on his truck, 6 meter.
Okay.
Oh, that's nice.
Yep.
So that's excellent.
But you can buy the whole kit from them, and they tell you exactly how to set it up. Their stuff is all you do is look at their instructions, set it up the way they say, and it works.
Y'all are going to cost me more money today, I feel.
Get 2.
Yeah.
What's the stacking difference? What was the stacking difference there? Did it say how
It
far
was
apart?
double.
Yeah. You just got to make
Double
sure
the
you just got to make sure that the bottom one, if you're doing this mobile, you just got to make sure that you there's a certain elevation you have to have above the roof of your car, otherwise it's going to affect the pattern.
Oh, I was talking for his house, more for his house though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would do that here. Put that on the radio here, or the one in the shop where I got a little more leeway.
The cool thing about it is people probably never see it. I mean, once you put it up for a while.
Right. Well, I've discovered something excellent to keep things wife-approved. She doesn't know how many antennas I have up.
There you go.
I hand spray paint them camo colors so they kind of blend in with the foliage, and she has not noticed all the antennas. So at least she hasn't said anything. So I'm going
to put that on my list today too, because
when I got my first J pole, I bought one from KB9 VBR, and I have this shiny copper J pole, and she said, "What are you doing with that?" I said, "It's an antenna, baby. It's an antenna, baby. Where are you going to put that? Nowhere you'll see. How about that? How about the
front yard?
Yeah,
right on the porch.
I took that bad boy over to the shop and made it camo brown and green. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all right, guys. This has been a great show.
Hey, let me just tell you, the other place is called SAL Electronics, and I think they're pretty close to Sean.
I'm not familiar with that brand. I know that here in Urbana, back in the 70s and 80s, there was a company, interestingly enough, called HAL Communications, and they were a big radio teletype company for a while. But I think they got out of the ham radio business quite a while ago.
Yeah, Sal does. That's the one that Gary actually bought. Theirs are pretty nice too.
Oh, I'll have to check them out.
I think they're near you.
I've learned
if I know where you live.
We're gonna spend your money now.
Yeah, we're spending your money now. I'm telling you though, I need to take my 2 meter with me.
Moxon, there it is. Yep.
There you go.
Moxons too.
Yep.
Moxon will work too, man.
Look at that. All right, now I know I got something to do this morning.
These loops are pretty high Q.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they?
They're going to be tight.
That. I don't know. I don't think they're that.
I'm looking at the bandwidth on them, and they look high Q to me.
We'll set it up for the calling frequency. That's all you need.
The higher the Q, the
up
better
and down
the antenna.
And up and down a little bit. What is the bandwidth?
Where are these boys at? Algonquin.
Well, the one on 6 meters is only 300K, right?
Each way?
Well,
it's from 50 to 50.3.
Yeah, and the FT8 frequency on 6 is 50.313. So that's it's real close. I mean, practically speaking, there's not a whole lot on 6 meters below, say, 50.080. So if you want to try adjusting the frequency coverage, you could easily get CW sideband and FT8 all within 300 kilohertz.
Oops. Somebody's playing right now.
And I am looking at dxmaps.com right now, and it looks like there's some activity on 6 as we speak. Looks like the northeast
big
is
signals
working,
right now.
Yeah.
And there wasn't earlier this morning.
Yeah. Looks like northeast is working down into the Caribbean. Looks like Toronto is working Trinidad and St. Lucia and Guadeloupe and Grenada and all kinds of interesting stuff. So if you're in the Northeast, check out 6 meters and see what you can hear.
I just had something hit me with S9, but I don't see anything now.
There you go.
Am I on? Yeah, I'm on the right antenna. Oh, that's with my amp up though.
So that's pretty. I don't think I've ever played with this site. That's pretty smart.
This is a great site. It provides QSO coverage information based on packet spots. So and it covers It also shows 10 meters and 2 meters as well. So if you want to see what's going on 10 meters in North America, you can just click one of the tabs across the top, and it'll show you what's going on 10 as well, which I haven't checked yet today. Oh, there you go. Okay, so you're looking at the beginnings of the summer sporadic E season. So that means that 6 and 10 meters and even a little bit of 2 meters on occasion will get some really nice enhancement on the bands. So dxmaps.com is a great website to keep track of the activity. The information that it's showing on the screen, I think, is no more than an hour out of date, which in some cases on 6 and 10 meters, an hour is an eternity.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So you definitely want to keep track of this on a regular basis, but it's definitely a good resource for folks just getting started on the band to see if there is an opening, and if the band is open, where it's open to.
Yeah. I've used that for a long time for 6 meter
Right.
because we don't. Unfortunately, I don't get the 6 meter that you guys get back east for some reason. I don't know if it's people here that don't do it, because we have that Bozo net and he does 6 on Wednesday nights.
Okay.
And I can talk to Fresno almost every night, no problem.
Right.
Yeah,
But
that's to actually get people on. The only time we have people on is when there's an opening.
Right. And, I'm guilty of that myself. I monitor the 6 meter FT8 frequency, and, sometimes I'll monitor the 6 meter calling frequency on 50.125 just to see if there's activity. But, admittedly, I've gotten rather picky over the years about who I try to talk to, because I've made contact with almost every grid square in the Southeast at this point. So I'm looking for rarer openings. And for me, that means openings out West.
Almost every grid square, my man.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah.
My buddy, I've never contacted my
6
buddy
meters.
Gary. I've never contacted Gary, but he's contacted, because I never seem to be home when he's making contacts, but he's making contacts like to my next door neighbor and stuff like, but we haven't done it. But the guy in Tennessee, Howard, that guy is just, I don't know. He's basically, I think all of it, the story is this, pretty much most of his family has passed, and it's just him. That's what he loves doing. So he's got a super setup, and he'll talk to you 2 or 3 times in the same opening if you want. He doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
Look at this. And he's blaming you for this, Chuck.
I know he is.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just a guest here. Sean's in charge.
Yeah, no, this has been some really good information. That loop antenna looks interesting. I'm still going to whip up a dipole 6 meters.
Dipole is a great way to get started. Honestly, there are a lot of people who start checking out 6 meters by using a 40 meter dipole that they already have. There's, a 40 meter dipole. There's a mathematical element where a 40 meter dipole will load pretty well on 6 meters. So if you don't have anything else up, and you got a 40 meter dipole, just run that through your tuner and see what you can do with that.
Well, I was just sitting here thinking. So I'm running a 7610, and I have a DX Commander in the backyard. So yeah, I had to be, and I have a 993 tuner, so I can pretty much tune a coffee can.
Yep.
Well,
So I
Hayden
need to
sounds like
get
it.
on 6 and
where
try.
he built the collinear 6 meter that he's had a lot of luck with, and it was relatively simple.
Yeah.
313 is the FT8, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, if you want to
there.
try building a dipole, there a 6 meter dipole resonant at 50.125 is 9 feet 4 inches long. And you can, if you want to get super fancy, you can build it out of aluminum pipe and just permanently mount it to the side of your house. You don't even need a tree or anything like that. But just simple wire, a simple 9.5 foot long wire cut in half, and stick some.
I see a
coax on
trip
it.
to
You'll
Home
be fine.
Depot. I see a trip to Home Depot in my future today.
Oh, I
you go.
made my
cut the
first
grass
one out
too,
of EMT conduit, man.
Well, that's what I was
Half-inch.
thinking. I don't have that much EMT here, but yeah,
What the heck is EMT?
Just your
Electrical
your
conduit.
Electrical
it's conduit. I don't know what EMT stands for. Electromechanical tubing.
Tubing.
I built my
Probably.
first 6 meter antenna out of old speaker wire I had lying around, and loaded up great. Worked a bunch of stuff with it.
Now, what am I getting blamed for now? Oh,
The radio doesn't care about your antenna's brand name.
Oh,
Who said that?
No, it's Sean's right. Exactly how I got started with not the 40 meter, but I built a dipole for 6 meter. It just out of some conduit.
now the Swede says he has a 6 meter, Let me put that up on the screen. We're kind of going long. I hope we're not walking over anybody. The Swede has a 6 meter. So this is our friend Morton, and Morton is in southern Norway, right by Sweden. And Ape does not recognize geopolitical borders. So he is the Swede. He's Norwegian. And Morton is in southern Norway. So I could possibly get you maybe. I don't know. I'd have to look at the map. I guess we'd probably have to do single sideband. But he's in southern Norway, so it can happen. You or T.O. might have a better chance at getting Norway than I will.
You never know. It just depends on how the sporadic clouds line up.
I've got Norway. I've got Norway on an infed half wave.
No. Not, I'm talking on 6 meters or satellite.
Oh, it was 20. Sorry. Yeah, 6 meters is tough.
6 meters. Yeah.
Openings. That's the thing I do. I looked into getting an amp for 6 meters, but I just don't have. The it's just not. I don't get that much here. So except for openings, and my 100 watts has done pretty good for that. So.
LC just got some copper. What are you talking about? Copper pipe, or what did you do?
It's probably wire.
Copper.
Just
I guess that would work too, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it'd work fine.
I have a whole roll of 12.3 in the shop. I could steal that.
Yeah, just
and
put it on the board or
buddy.
some PVC. Yeah, Thump's here. He just woke up.
We've awakened the Thump. I'm over here
time.
looking at my radio. I got some noise going on today.
I don't have anything.
You got a
Thumps.
radio?
I
didn't know you even had a license there, buddy.
I don't. You don't need one for 7.2. How many times I got to tell you guys that?
7200, man. Ape and I have talked on 7200 a lot.
Yeah.
Or 80 meters. Ape's probably sharing gout stories on.
Right, you can hear me on.
He says quarter inch wire.
The prescription net. The prescription net on 80 meters. Where we talk about that.
I got the new blood pressure medicine, and my gout is acting up.
Guys, what I have? You know what I have in the backyard? You guys won't believe this, but I was at one time.
Moxon?
I was making a 10 meter Moxon out of copper.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
When I did my addition on my house, I had a bunch of copper, half-inch copper left over. I had all ready to go. I just never finished it. But it might, maybe it'd be a good 10 meter.
Well, you're entering prime time for 10 meters right now. So if you're going to do it.
I've got 3 elements on 10 then also at 50 feet.
There you go. That'll work.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
awesome.
waiting for that. I'm waiting for that stuff for sure.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, thanks for joining.
Really? Yay, golf claps. Fellas, unless y'all got any more questions for Mr. Sean, I think we're about.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it.
We'll have to have another show because it's just too much to cover.
Yeah. There was a lot to cover. We kind of didn't do justice to. We didn't even talk about the P word at all. The POTA stuff.
Oh yeah.
And,
well, it's my pleasure. I like I said, I like talking about being active on the air. So if you want to bring me back, that's fine. Happy to do it. Field day coming up. We got all sorts of things we could talk about field day too, and
we'll do it.
We'll have our people contact your people. The new field day swag was just released.
Oh, was it?
Got the email from the league.
For ARL.
But if anybody has any questions, like, if somebody, is wondering about some of the stuff that we talked about, by all means, reach out to me. My email address is on qrz.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Sean Kutzko. You can find me there as well. Happy to talk to you. If you got any questions about it, by all means, just reach out.
Thanks,
Happy to help.
Oh yeah.
We will.
And we're gonna update show notes, and I'll try to get a nice comprehensive list of all the things we talked about and some links.
Cool. And again, if you're interested in checking out satellite operating seriously, go to my DX Engineering video series that talks satellites from knowing nothing about it to getting you on the air and getting you out roving if you want to do that. And that's on the DX Engineering YouTube channel.
And do you have a YouTube channel of your own?
I do, but I haven't done anything with it in a real long time.
Okay.
So I need to get off my butt and start doing stuff for it.
I've got links for your DX Engineering stuff.
Okay.
And I'll post all those in the show notes as
Thank
well. Because I know you had a bunch of playlists for various stuff.
And cat videos are good for YouTube channels.
No,
videos. That's awesome.
all the cat stuff is on my Instagram feed. That's pretty much all I do with my Instagram.
That's where you keep that.
My cat. So
Mine comes in here every Saturday and Sunday morning and wants to hang out with me while I'm doing this. Any other time she's not here, and I had to chase her away.
Mine's sitting right back there. I don't know if you can see her or not, but she's sacked out. You know, she's 19 years old and she's deaf as a post.
Oh my goodness.
And frail, and you know, all she does is sleep. Can't get her to. You know, she needs a job or something. She just doesn't.
She's not hunting mice no more.
My cat is considerably. This cat is considerably younger than 19, and all she does is sleep. I think it's a cat thing.
Did we thank Skeeter? Did I miss that?
I said thank you to Skeeter.
We got
Thank you,
Swede.
Skeeter.
The Swede has donated 20 knots.
Thank you also.
20
Nice.
20 kroners.
Thank you.
Are those kroners? I think.
Beats me.
I don't know. 20
No,
knots.
that's Swedish money. It's kroners, man. Come on.
Well, it keeps calling him a Swede. I'm confused. Okay.
How do you get kroner out of NOKs?
I have country dysphoria.
there are no
I'm not sure what
kroners.
country he's actually in at any one time.
And
so
if you
he
guys didn't
lives
see
right
mine,
by. He can
Country
like
fluid.
Morton can throw a rock and hit Sweden from his house, or go have lunch in Sweden and be back home in Norway for dinner.
real quick, one in the chat if you want to see Sean again. I typed it in there, but you guys might not have seen it. But
Norwegian
Oh, yeah.
kroner. That's how they confuse you.
oh, Croner.
No crow.
A no crow. A no
All right.
crow. All right, great guys. I'm fixing to hit the button. I appreciate
Hit
you
it.
coming, Sean.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so
everybody.
much.
button, man.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks a lot for having me.
Thanks,
and,
Sean.
If you want me back, just ask me. I'm happy to do it.
Oh yeah, we will be.
do.